Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Card Fellas Show. Well, Chris, we've bashed them often on this show, but I have to wonder, is Beckett back in the grading business? And the reason we're talking about this is I got an email with the subject line, economy is open. And so that got me thinking, hey, Chris, it's time to do a show. Let's talk about Beckett. They're back in business. We've been bashing them. And so this is our opportunity to wonder, okay, is Beckett back, or is this their last stand?
Right.
That's kind of where we're at.
Yeah. They have a great reputation, I think, and people know them. And you and I grew up with Beckett as that was everybody owned a Beckett because that was the price guide. We all
Yes.
had the football and the baseball and the basketball magazines we walked around with every month, and that's how we decided how much things were worth. So, they're definitely kind of the traditional name.
Yes.
And when people got back into the hobby the way they did 3 years ago, I think people were like, "Oh yeah, you want a Beckett graded card." I know your first submission was through them because that was just a name that you knew and you trusted them.
Right.
But I think when people now get a sense of where we are, obviously, PSA has damaged their reputation over the last year and a half to 2 years with the backlog. But the reality is, when we start looking at what cards are selling for on eBay, that's where the value is. So
Yes.
it's difficult to recommend someone grade cards with Beckett, full well knowing that the values aren't going to be as good. But I think when people think about Beckett, they think they do a great job grading, I've never heard anyone say their grading is awful. It just comes
Their
down to
their grading is tough, I will
right.
say, as you mentioned. So there were two reasons why I chose Beckett for my first grading experience. You mentioned it. I know the name. I grew up with Beckett. The other one was the price. They were the cheapest in town at the time. So that's why I chose them. I ended up not being happy with my grades, so I cracked them and sent them to PSA and got better grades. Sold the cards for more than they would have gone for if they were still in the BGS lab. So I learned real quickly about the value of PSA versus BGS. So I'm going to talk about the highlights of the email that I made reference to. So big subject line, economy now open. So I'm like, okay, what does that mean? I really didn't know BGS like I do PSA. So I'm like, okay, what's economy? What's this all mean? So here are some of the bullet point highlights. So the economy from Beckett has been closed for more than a year, so they haven't been taking any orders. This is how they differentiate it. No membership required. That's a direct message to PSA. No cap on the number of cards you can submit. That was, again, a message to PSA, which now PSA has gone away with. You can submit as many cards as you want. No max value on cards. So that's an interesting play for sure. So you can put any card in and not have a max value. Business days turnaround 90 to 120. So it's about the same promise as PSA, probably a little bit longer than SGC. Now for the biggest news, and this is something that they left out of the email, but you had to actually click on the link, go read about it, was economy without any subgrades, which Beckett is known for, is $25. So they are undercutting PSA. They're competing with SGC. If you want to get those subgrades, you have to pay extra $10. Those are $35 per card. And the subgrades, if you're not familiar, are they give grading for centering and the corners and the edges, and so and the surface. And so you can pay $10 extra to get that. I don't know if there's a big deal as far as if somebody in the hobby is looking to buy a BGS, if subgrades mean as much. I didn't see much in the value, but Chris, that $25 price tag kind of got me intrigued a little bit. And I was like, BGS, you have my attention. And so started to do a little bit more of the research. And I'm not exactly sure anymore that BGS is the right play. And I thought when I saw the economy come back for $25, I immediately thought SGC versus BGS. What's the right play at this point? And the more research I did, I figured out on most cards, they're about the same. It's six one half dozen the other. But on some of the higher value cards, that's where SGC completely obliterates BGS. And that to me was shocking, given what track record Beckett had, how long they've been grading cards, and SGC is the new kid on the block, and I really think they're starting to kind of get that stranglehold on the second grading company title behind PSA, and so I don't know if this is going to be enough for Beckett to kind of get back to being a I don't even want to label them a premier grading company, but they're going to struggle to get back to where they once were.
Yeah, for sure. We've been doing the last few months, we've been kind of doing a little bit of analysis on what's going on every month. And SGC has been number 2 the last few months, and they are a distant second behind PSA. And then Beckett is not too far behind them as far as total cards graded. But I think probably the most interesting part of what you just read to me is the no max value. I mean,
Absolutely.
I had a card that I felt was a very valuable card, and I know that Beckett actually has a pretty good reputation for selling some big cards on the market.
Yes.
Obviously, you're going to wait 4 months to get it back, but if you've got that card that you think is in that $2,000-$3,000 range, it's definitely a lot better value, especially if you don't feel like you need it back right away. Maybe you're holding like a Nolan Ryan rookie card or something like that. Maybe that's the way to go. So I think that's probably the most interesting part of that whole deal. We've been talking a lot over the last few months about PSA and how they've been adding staff and adding square footage. Beckett's been doing the same thing. So I guess they just leased a building in March. They have about double the staff that they had last summer. So they definitely are ramping up as well. They are trying to, get back to where they were, I think. But one of the things I did, and I just looked into eBay and typed in PSA. And if you just type those in, and obviously you could be getting all kinds of weird search results, but if you put in PSA, you get 1.1 million listings. If you put in BGS, you get about 160,000, I believe, and SGC was 140,000. Actually, SGC is 160, and BGS was 240. So you got 1.1 million, 240,000 for BGS, and 160 for SGC. I think SGC's been playing catch up. Just
Yes.
BGS has been out there for a long time, but like we said, in the last few shows or last few months of shows, SGC is currently churning out more cards than Beckett. So that's the other thing. I just think PSA has so many cards out there, and when people look at graded cards and think of graded cards, that's what they think of. So I guess the question here is, am I sending cards to Beckett? And I think the answer is no. I agree. Still, I do believe that PSA will be right at that price point within the next 120 days. Probably, you'll be sending cards to PSA for $20 or $25. And to me, I play a patient game. I would wait for that.
I agree, and I think this play to me was more of the urgency for Beckett to get back to try to get ahead of SGC. Mm-hmm. I think we all agree. I think most people will agree. PSA is still going to be the standard, and I'm going to go through some stats here that kind of show that. But this to me is more of a BGS versus SGC debate, and there are some things that I like about the BGS grades and Beckett. I like the price. Okay, great. You can get me a graded card for $25. That's a great start. That's a great start. Now you're competing with SGC. I do like the Beckett slabs. I think they're classic. I think they're simple. I like the gold.
Mhm.
I really like the fact that they will grade my star basketball cards. Nobody else will grade those brands because they can easily be counterfeited, but they feel like they have a good enough process in finding those counterfeit cards. So I like to buy those star cards from dealers and get them graded. And so I really like that. So I do have some of those star cards that I want to get graded. So this is great news for me for that. And then the other thing that's really tricky, but it's a possibility. I like the opportunity to get a pristine 10. And that shoots up the value of the card tremendously. Again, extremely hard, extremely hard. And I'm not expecting that, but it's a possibility. And so I think that's one of the things that, Beckett hangs their hat on, but they just don't hand them out very often. And so you're stuck with a 9.5 gem mint. It just does not look, feel right. There's something about it that's a little bit off. Whereas, you could go get a gold label SGC 10 and that cards go shooting up, but an SGC 10 just feels like a better grade than a BGS 9.5. And when you look at the numbers, that's what it really shows. So I looked at 4 cards, cards that I thought were graded quite a bit. The first one was a Zion Williamson base prism rookie card. Okay, this is the one of him dunking, that everybody has that card who's gotten back into the hobby. The PSA 10 is selling for $190 to $200 right now. A BGS 9.5 is selling for around $100 to $110. A SGC 10 is selling for around $100 to $120. So you're looking at about $75 to $80 less than a PSA 10 for both of those brands. So you're not winning either way when you're looking at SGC versus Beckett. Now move to Joe Burrow. I just picked a random Joe Burrow 2020 Donruss rated rookie card, base card. A PSA 1 is selling for around 150, a BGS for around 125, an SGC around 115 to 125. So again, not a clear winner even with PSA. But again, those are modern cards. Those are in that value of around 150 to 200. Now, here's where the big differences happen. Ken Griffey Jr., 1989 Upper Deck rookie card. A PSA 10 sells for around $2,000. A BGS 9.5 sells for around 600 to 1,000. An SGC 10 sells for around $1,200 to $1,500. So an SGC 10, you're getting about $400 to $500 more on a resale than you would if you sold one from a BGS 9.5. So if you're going to get both of those cards graded for $25, SGC is the clear way to go. And the same goes for the 1996 Kobe Bryant Topps rookie card. PSA 10 sells for around 1,000 to 1,100. You go to BGS 9.5, it's about 400 to 500, so it about cuts that in half. SGC 10 is about 600 to 800. So again, there's about a $200 to $300 advantage to SGC. So when you're looking at grading costs being the same, but the resale value on some of these higher value cards are $200 to $400, it kind of writes its own story. SGC 10 is going to be more valuable than a BGS 9.5. So I think, Chris, to answer the question that I already asked you, are you submitting cards to BGS? I think it's a no. I think that's just I think that's as much as it excited me in the moment after doing the research. I don't see the value, and I just don't know how BGS is going to crack that top 2 again. Not
Right.
with this promotion. I don't think this is it.
Yeah, and I think with what you're talking about there, thinking about who would do it, and in my thoughts, I'm thinking maybe the old school collector guy is going to do it, but I don't think he's going to do it for 25. I think that person will want to do it for 10. The other thing and again, we're talking SGC versus BGS. We start listening to shows and watching YouTube videos, and SGC has done a fantastic job of putting their hats on people in these videos and on these podcasts. I like watching the Bench Clear Media guys, and they're walking around with SGC hats, and SGC's done a really good job over the last few years of being super transparent about what's going on at their company and kind of keeping everybody abreast of what's going on. So I think a lot of people almost see SGC as almost like their friends in the hobby, where you don't see that really with the other two big grading companies, even though PSA, is kind of the leader. But I think a lot of people see some secrecy and things there where SGC has done a good job of at least appearing that they're an open book. So, yeah, I'm with you in that. Beckett, you guys were cool in 1992, but it's gonna be a tough road to hoe here, I think, in the next 3 or 4 years. That's another thing that I've worked in a lot of different industries, and you see these boom periods, and a bunch of people invest and jump in, manufacture on the manufacturer side, and then when things start to go downhill, you start to lose kind of the weak players. And it's difficult to say Beckett's a weak player just because they've been around so long. But the way that things are going right now, they definitely look like a number 3.
They do. And their website is really challenging to navigate too. I'd say SGC, they have probably the most user-friendly website when you're submitting your cards. PSA takes a little bit of getting used to. I think you and I have submitted enough cards where it's easy to navigate, but it wasn't at the time. And Beckett's feels a little outdated and more challenging to use. And to be honest with you, quite frankly, I don't like it. I don't like interacting with it. And the other thing, when we talk about transparency and how SGC has won kind of the PR battle and the exposure battle, I'd get emails from Beckett, individuals at Beckett, telling me, hey, if you want to submit cards, work through me. And these were coming from individuals. And I remember sending one of my orders in, and I got an email, and it was almost like, next time do this. I was like, okay. I didn't know that was how it was supposed to be done. So they run it very much like a business, and that's okay. But when you have a competitor that's doing it differently and feels more interactive and easier to use, you're going to lose market share. And I will say SGC has done a really good job of making it easy. And bottom line, they're making it easier to get your cards back too. And so you're able to get those cards back sooner. You're able to sell them sooner. You're able to put them in your personal collection sooner. Whatever the case may be, they're just doing a better job of all of the things that we want out of a business. And so I don't think this moves the needle for Beckett. I think we've talked about it on this show. PSA made their big announcement about a month ago. I don't think the needle moved much there. And so if people are looking to get their cards graded right now, I think SGC is the way to go. And if you do have a little bit of time on your side, if you will, patience is a virtue. And I think PSA is still the place to send your cards, and eventually those prices will come down. So I think you and I are both in agreement. Hold until PSA comes down in price, and then bombard them with your cards if you want to get them graded.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that works out. And my guess is it's going to be an incremental decrease in price by PSA. I mean, now that their competitors at 25, maybe they do go right to 25. But I think there is probably some real concern there that if they drop to 25, the floodgates open once again. But I don't know. You've been out there and I've been out there, and it feels like things are beginning to correct, and we're not going to have this crazy madness time. So the collectors out there, and not the people who are really interested in flipping. The collectors, I think, are about to go back to where they like it.
Mhm.
It was interesting. I've just been checking out stuff on the blowout forums and people talking about, big print runs, and there was a take there that I read today and said, the people who are here for money hate big print runs, but the collectors say just keep printing them, baby, because that means those are cards that I can get. So it
Mhm.
was just kind of an interesting take. So things are definitely, we're in the transition period. So I'll be curious to see how things go the next 3 or 4 months and kind of where that price ends up going.
Mhm.
Um, people really do start grading fewer cards, which I think is definitely going to happen.
Yes.
Does SGC drop back down to $15? That could happen too in the next few months. And then how does PSA respond to that? So
I
it'll
think these
be
are all I absolutely. I think these are all things that are very much in play. And I was going to say, and I will tell you, $25 per card is still not cheap.
no,
I
no,
mean, they've fooled us into
yep,
believing $25 is cheap. You and I have, well, I don't want to say you. I don't know if you do or not. I think actually you're done with your PSA orders. But I have two orders left at PSA that are from the $20 per card and then the $25 per card era, and I'm thinking back to myself now, boy, I don't want my credit card to be charged. Like that's going to feel like a lot. I think it's
right,
like, I think, my order number was in the teens for each, but that's going to be a pricey charge on my card. And I don't think my cards that I sent are going to recoup that money like we did in the past. So I'm still going to be very picky when it comes to sending in my cards for 25. So I don't think PSA gets bombarded.
right,
And so it's just a matter of them waiting out this $50 per card period, waiting for everybody's collectors club membership to expire. So we have to re-up,
right.
and then they're going to determine, how do we proceed. But yeah, I think that's coming, and I think this is just another sign that the price wars are going to heat up. But I just don't. Yeah, I'm right there in agreement. I'm sorry for interrupting you, but I agree with you. $25 is still a little bit too steep for many people, and I think you brought up something that I hadn't thought of. If SGC wants to stay ahead of the game, maybe $15 is something that they're going to have to look at sooner rather than later.
Yeah, man, I remember 2020, 100 card subs for less than $900.
That
Let's go
was the
back to
way to
those
go.
days.
That was the way to go, and that's what obviously caused the backlog. And but at the same time, I think there are fewer. I think we're just in a different time. We've talked
Mhm.
about it ad nauseum. I mean, the economy is much different. The inflation is much different. People don't have as much money to spend on those non-essential things like sports cards, and that also means that the number of buyers, is declining as well. So the flippers, I think, even if grading costs go down, I don't think the flippers come flocking back. There's just not. And you mentioned the print runs too. There's just more of it. So a lot to watch here. But Beckett going down to $25 for economy is an interesting move as we watch this evolve over the next several months.
Yeah, again, we talked about this PSA. They added square footage, they added workers. They're getting through that backlog. They got to put those people to work, and that's what that $25 is. Because I can guarantee you, they're still making a lot of money at $25 a card.
Indeed, they are. And hopefully those monthly specials come back. That's my biggest hope.
Right?
PSA, if you're listening, monthly specials, do something for us, friends in the hobby, because that was always something worth looking for. Those quarterly specials, not monthly. Maybe they move to monthly. How awesome would that be? But the quarterly specials from
Right.
PSA. So, well, there you go. I don't think we're buying the Beckett hype again. But again, Star brand cards, those will still get sent by me. So this $25 price tag is better news. I will probably be sending some cards in. So we'll see how that process goes. But yeah, stick with collecting your cards, holding on to your raw cards for a while. That's kind of our recommendation. That's what we're doing. So we'll just continue to track it. And if anything happens like this, we get emails or you guys see stuff, just let us know.
All right, from Matt, I'm Chris. We'll talk to you on the next show.